Start Over Strong, Life After a DUI, a podcast for people, not offenders. Brought to you by Smart Start, the nation's most trusted, judgment-free ignition interlock provider. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Morgan Ryan and this is Stigma Free IID. Today we have a fantastic episode planned for you. Parents out there, communities and teens, we're going to talk about prom, spring break, homecoming, graduation parties, and all things underage drinking, and you guessed it, drunk driving. Today, I'd like to talk about prevention. Statistically speaking, prom is one of the most dangerous seasons for underage drinking and impaired driving. Today, I'd like to talk about prevention, not punishment, not shame, and nothing of shock value. We're talking about what parents, teens, and communities can do before one decision can change everything. And to help us have this conversation, we are joined today by someone who lives and breathes prevention every single day, one of my personal friends as well, the Senior Director of Development for MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Meghan Carter. Welcome to the show, Meghan.
Thanks, Morgan, for having me.
Absolutely. Would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and what your organization MADD does?
Sure. So Meghan Carter, Senior Director of Development for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I've been with the organization for over 17 years. So started as an affiliate. Yes, so started as an affiliate executive director out of my hometown, which is St. Louis, Missouri, and have worked my way into various roles in the organization where I'm proud to sit in the role as Senior Director of Development at this time. So so it's been a great journey. I've learned a lot, have had the privilege of working with so many individuals to include victims and survivors of impaired driving, our corporate partners who work so closely with us, Smart Start being one of those, Smart Start being one, that we work very closely with to overall end impaired driving, because we know each and every life lost and each and every individual who's injured, every single crash is 100% preventable.
It is preventable. And Meghan, that's really where I want to focus the conversation today. Folks, we're going to take you on a journey. We're going to talk about some statistics, but we're going to spend the majority of today's conversation around prevention. I know you are eager to hear what the two top heads in this industry are doing and talking about in terms of actual prevention. We're going to talk about peer pressure. We're going to talk about sports. We are going to spend some time on prom, and we've got great ideas for the group today. So Meghan, let's start off. Do we actually see a spike this time of year for drinking and driving, especially for underage drinkers? And then I'm curious, what is happening around specifically prom and spring break that may be causing a rise in these statistics?
So we do, specifically in youth, whenever it comes to this time of year, whether it's getting prepared for spring break, as you said, prom and graduation, we do see an uptick when it comes to impaired driving crashes. The reason being is because obviously these are celebratory times of the year. It's an exciting time where for many of those who are preparing for the end of their high school careers, are getting ready to go to college, but it's a big time for them with a lot of celebrations. So, as an organization, we do a lot, and we have a lot of focus working with schools, working with parents and other caring adults to ensure the safety of the youth in our lives, and knowing that there's still opportunities to celebrate as they should, but then also reminding them that they should do it alcohol and substance free.
I understand completely. And it says here that prom in particular has been historically associated as an elevated alcohol involved crash opportunity for teens. And I know that your organization is doing something really big around prom. Can you talk to me about this specifically?
Sure.
This I would assume would also apply to HOCO, homecoming.
Yes.
Okay.
So MADD has done a lot, and we have programs for not only youth, but also for parents when it comes to underage substance use prevention. But last year, we were really excited to roll out a new intervention program, very specific to not only prom, but then also homecoming that'll take place in the fall. But it's called MADD's Promposal. So again, it is very much focused on prom, the fun of prom, reminding youth that it is an exciting time of year. But then again, always remembering not to use underage, not only because it's illegal, but also because of the many other consequences, to include that their brain is still developing, but also having that reminder as well to never get in a vehicle with an impaired driver. So with this, again, a very a new and exciting program that we have that we deploy in schools that also includes an intervention. So we include the use of what are called fatal vision goggles that give the visual aspects of what impairment does. So we do an activity and have built that into the program specifically for this so that students can see the visual impacts that take place whenever they do drink.
Right. I do think too, you mentioned that the adolescent brain, I have a note here. It says the adolescent brain is still developing and is more susceptible to alcohol's effects. The human brain doesn't even finish developing until the early 20s,
That's right.
especially the areas responsible for decision making, impulse control. This is planning and judgment. Drinking during this development period can interfere with normal maturation of these systems. So, this is brain development, impulse control, inexperience with alcohol, and overconfidence all coming together. Now, promposal, what a great term that you've dubbed.
Well, and we took a kick off of the, what students are doing now, which we absolutely love, where they are when they
Right.
ask their dates
Mhm.
or asking someone to go to prom with them, they do a
Yes.
promposal. So we did exactly that,
Sure.
taking a trend and using it, where we
Mm.
are again putting the information out there and reminding
Right.
students to make good choices, but then also having them make the pledge and sign our promposal
Mm.
again to have a safe prom,
Sure.
not use underage, and also keep an eye out for
Right.
their friends and their peers, but then also to never get in a vehicle with an
You're
impaired driver.
speaking their language.
Yes,
No
exactly.
cap.
Right. Precisely.
Right, 6, 7. I just kidding. I think that's wonderful, and I think too I wanna talk more about promposal specifically, but, I've seen a lot of commentary online. I watch very closely our Reddit community specifically. Parents who, themselves I'm a parent myself. My
Mhm.
children are too young at this point, but, your children are watching you and observing you and how you consume alcohol, especially for celebratory experiences, as early as 10 years old. So my mantra, Morgan's mantra is model moderation. We don't want to treat alcohol as something that is evil. We want to treat alcohol in a responsible way. And modeling that behavior to our children is a great preventative step. Again, they're watching as early as 10. Now, we also don't want to consume alcohol in excess, and we don't want to abstain or withhold from alcohol necessarily if we're of age.
Of age,
When we're
yes.
not of age, when we talk about school specifically, Smokey the Bear and MADD, what is the actual impact, right? Because I remember in school learning that this is bad and drugs are bad and don't do it. And it was sort of this top down approach
Mhm.
where I think our teens and the parents listening today are looking for actual tangible items in their toolkit, so to speak, to help prevention. When you're talking about something like goggles,
Mhm.
that leaves me with a physical visual. It almost makes me feel sick imagining it. And another sort of key takeaway is I like to say, if you feel different, you drive different. And that's true for me and my mom friends and
Mhm.
my girlfriends. If we get brunch or we're celebrating together or we're doing things, these actual tangible items that you can put in their toolkit, remembering the goggles, right? And then
Yep.
this proposal. It's a physical contract, if I'm understanding it correctly.
It's
Can
a
you talk
pledge,
to me about it?
essentially a pledge that they're taking.
Okay.
So, I mean, and this is where, our underage substance use programming is multi-layered. We do focus on the youth and we go into the schools, not only with Promposal and Mad Spirit, which is our homecoming, but then also our Power of Youth program, which is really, again, having those conversations with the youth and encouraging them to be the peer leaders and being an influence for not only themselves, but for others. But we also have a parent program that we have called Power of Parents that was based off of research that Dr. Teresi from Penn State did, where he built a handbook for college freshman parents
Mm.
to read ahead of their children going into college and encouraging them to have the conversation and having that vital conversation to talk about not only the dangers of drinking underage, but then also the consequences that could come. So we did an adaptation of that,
Mm.
built it first for high school and now for middle school. And we have a handbook that's at no charge to the community, thanks to our partners at Nationwide Insurance for being our national presenting sponsor of the program, that we're able to distribute these out to communities, not only in a physical form, but then also digitally. And we also have an audio book now that, again, encourage parents to have those conversations
Yes.
with the children, because statistics also show that regardless of whether parents realize it or not, they are the number one influence on their children's lives and the decisions that they make. So when it comes to underage substance use and having those conversations, they are going to make a major impact on
Yeah.
their children.
Hearing about the notion of a handbook being read before college, I'm so glad you mentioned as early as middle school, because to me, college is too late. It's
Mhm.
far too late.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
our generation, having lived through it, we are trying to solve the problem.
Exactly.
We understand it is a real problem, and we are trying to meet parents and teens where they are. One thing in particular, teen behavior, parental behavior, which is, kind of where I want to shift to next in terms of what you can do to feel empowered and how much control you actually have. You mentioned parents are the biggest influencer. They have more
Mhm.
influence than they think.
Yep.
I have an awesome episode planned with an individual named Mike Austin, and he's kind of known as the American dad. And Mike Austin talks a lot. He has 6 children, and Mike Austin talks a lot about the hero complex of the dad. Dads oftentimes are the disciplinary, right? Even post drinking, underage drinking event, but they're the disciplinary, and he's trying to shift the mindset of being the hero. Call your mom, call your dad. If you're in trouble, call your mom and call your dad. We can talk about it later, but we are here to give you some tools in your toolkit. I wanted to touch base first on spring break before we move into kind of more of those items. It says here in the statistics that in Texas, in one spring break alone, 810 DUI alcohol related traffic crashes were recorded, resulting in 44 fatalities and 90 serious injuries. That's just in Texas. 44 deaths in the state of Texas after one spring break. This is devastating to me. 90 serious additional injuries. So, what do you say to parents that have children, teenagers, so to speak, that are ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, maybe even as early as 7th and 8th grade, who we know are going to be exposed to alcohol? How do we actually prevent these kids, especially even those in sports, who may be exposed even more through their sports channels?
Mhm. So again, it's so vitally important for parents and caring adults to have that vital conversation with the youth in their lives about not drinking underage and why. Not only because of the dangers that they have with their developing brain, but also it's illegal. It's illegal for them to drink underage under the age of 21. So it's important for parents to have those conversations, but to your point, also model that behavior. So when they're at home, whenever they're if they choose to drink, are they modeling the behavior that they are setting as the expectation for their children? One thing that we have seen and we've talked about as an organization is that sometimes parents will allow their children to drink at home during certain times of the year. So whether it's the
Okay.
holidays, during
Yes. I
celebrations.
know plenty of people in high school who were allowed to drink at home. Izzy Varela, my co host, also talks about this. He grew up in a different era where, right, as long as you're doing it at
At home.
home and you're with me and it's safe and controlled, that, I understand that this is safe for you. But parents are still doing this today,
Mhm.
is your point, and you're
Well, and the intent is that their hope is that they're going to teach their child to drink responsibly. There's no
Mhm.
ill will or ill intent behind it, but the problem with that is research shows for parents that do allow drinking in their household, again, during certain times of year, whether it's a glass of wine during the holidays,
Mhm.
their children are more likely to drink outside of the home because they feel this level of rite of passage then. Well, if I can do it at home, then I can do it outside of the home too. And, our parents will be
Mhm.
okay with it. So it actually has the adverse effect where parents are trying to, again, unintentionally, teach their children to drink responsibly. But in the end, what they're doing is actually encouraging underage substance use and drinking outside of the home.
I think, Megan, it probably creates a false sense of confidence as
Mhm.
well. And it's something, limits. I mean, even at age 30, I didn't understand my limits. Even I think as a young adult and into adulthood, you're still trying to understand how different forms of alcohol impact your body. Women in particular, our bodies metabolize alcohol differently than
Very
our male
differently. Mhm.
counterparts,
Yep.
with that water body percentage. And so for a child, a teen, to think that they have almost a false sense of confidence, they don't understand their limits. This is like a key to the car when essentially they're not. ready to do it. In fact, let's talk about real briefly, here's the ripple effect. When a teen gets a DUI, what does that actually mean long term? So license suspension, we're looking at school discipline, college admissions issues. This is heartbreaking.
Mhm.
This is heartbreaking to me. Financial burden on the family, emotional trauma, severe legal consequences, and one night that essentially will alter their
Your
entire
life for the
trajectory
rest of your life. Mhm.
for the rest of their life. So why then would parents want to allow their teens to drink at home? When you think about the results and the impact and the actual consequences of almost tricking your teen into thinking that they're mature enough to handle this when really their body, mind, and spirit is not, to alter the entire course of their life,
Mhm.
is pretty devastating. Extra statistics I wanted to talk about. We do know that a lot of youth die nationally due to underage drinking. In fact, it's so high, 4,000 young people under the age of 21 die from excessive alcohol use annually in the United States. Of that 4,000, about 1,392 are due to motor vehicle crashes that involved an impaired driver under the age of 21. Teens obviously, Megan, represent a disproportionate share of fatal alcohol-related traffic deaths. How how do we solve the problem? How do we solve the problem?
I think one thing too is that there's a common misperception that everybody's drinking. With teens, they think, well, if I go somewhere, everybody's going to be drinking, and the statistics show that's not necessarily the case. So that's a falsehood that they have in their minds. But again, I think continuing that conversations and really this being a community conversation, not just parents, not just caring adults, everybody in the community having a responsibility and role to ensuring that our youth are, again, not doing anything illegal, but then also keeping one another safe. We know ending drunk driving starts with preventing underage drinking. And our goal as an organization, as a community, is to raise the next generation that's going to end impaired driving for good. So for us, it's starting those conversations early, having them often. It's not a one and done conversation, it's a continuing conversation that we have. I have a soon to be 15-year-old who is a freshman in high school, and we've been having these conversations since he was born, obviously with his two other siblings as well, because we live in the world of MADD, and that's where I work and I live and I breathe every single day, which I feel fortunate for. I feel fortunate for that. But it's continuing those conversations and having them often. And he'll come home and talk about oh, so and so went out and they had some beers, or so and so went out and did whatever. And I'm like, well, how do you feel about that? And again, really engaging in conversations where I'm asking them questions as well.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily talking to them. And again, every single parent is different in the way that you engage with your child and how you have those conversations, but it's just important. Ensure that you have those conversations, ensure that there's an understanding of the consequences that come if a bad decision is made, and again, having them often.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I remember one of my coaches, I played soccer and did sports, and one of my coaches encouraging us to be the black sheep. When you say that not everyone's drinking, um, I remember very vividly opportunities in high school at that age and as a teen and being exposed to it, even as a student athlete, a high performing student athlete. I was, a good girl, so to speak. And I remember our coach specifically saying, be the one that's different, be the black sheep, be the one that isn't drinking, because believe it or not, you're not the only black sheep. There are individuals around that are standing their ground. And I think having those conversations early and having them repeatedly and organically.
Yes.
You said something to me that really struck out around doing it in a way that is true to your relationship with your child. You know your child, and they're looking up to you, and they're looking to you first, believe it or not, before they're going to look to an external
Anybody.
MADD
Yep.
or a Smokey the Bear. They're going to look to you first. And so showing up as yourself, and then the second part of that, not just organically being yourself and nurturing that relationship and conversation, seeing it as an opportunity, but secondly, explaining the consequences.
Exactly.
And making sure that they understand the consequences that we just listed. So, okay, parents, teens, and communities, nuts and bolts. Here we go. How do we solve the problem, and what are the tangible tools that you can use to prevent impaired drinking and drunk driving? Teens often feel invincible Megan, is that true?
They do. But I think overall there's sometimes this level of invincibility, and it's not gonna happen to me, but a lot of times with teens. And again,
Mm.
just having that reminder that, to make those good choices, because you don't want, one decision to
Mm.
impact your future, much like
Right.
you said, have that
Mm.
one decision impact your future, whatever that may
Yeah.
be.
And I think, we're kind of talking about the problem. What's the problem? And then what's the solution? So the problem, teens feel invisible. Teens feel invincible. Parents assume, not my kid.
There are still some parents out there that are like that. There very much are. But again,
Sure.
some of the best kids can get into a situation where there's
Yeah.
just a bad decision that's made. And again,
Mm.
we as an organization see it every single day. We see how those one bad decision can alter somebody's life for the rest of their life. So that's why we are just any opportunity to be able to spread that awareness, whether it's on underage drinking or the impaired driving side of things for those that are over 21. We're constantly having that message out there and reminding the community.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a kid problem. It could be a
Sure.
situation problem, right?
Yes.
The right kid in the wrong
Mhm.
situation.
Right.
Other problem here we have conversations are happening too late and rides seem safe enough. I can't express this enough. The ride seems safe enough. I have been in that situation personally on more than one occasion where again, we're at brunch and we're drinking wine or we've had a mimosa and the people in the group are asking, "Are you okay to drive? I don't know. Are you okay to drive? Am I okay to drive?" As adults, if we've experienced that, our teens are obviously likely going to experience that. And so that's clearly another problem. If we shift to a solution mindset, so what are practical, preventable steps that families can take? Possible talking points number 1, safe ride agreements. Megan, what's your take on this one?
For us, we always talk about, with youth, sometimes you're going to get into a bad situation where you go somewhere and you don't anticipate, you know,
Mm.
your child could be making the right choice and not drinking, but that doesn't mean that the individuals that they're with, unfortunately, don't fall into that peer pressure and then end up drinking. So, for us, again, having that reminder to always talk to them about not drinking underage, but then also that importance of never getting into in a vehicle with an impaired driver. So if they're out with their friends, their friend drove, their friend decides to have a drink, making sure that they're very much aware of their surroundings. And then also, then what do you do? And having that conversation to say, if you are ever in a bad situation, call me. And if
Mm.
necessary, make an excuse. Say, hey, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to have my mom come pick me up. Or,
Yeah.
something came up. I need to have my mom come get me. And have, a code word with your parent and just say, hey, mom, my stomach hurts. I need to come home. And
Right.
just have some sort of cue to make sure that they're feeling comfortable to be able to approach their parents. And then again, have that agreement with their parents. That their parents are like, no matter what, we will come get you to ensure that you and your friends are
Are
safe.
safe. Yeah, that's great. I love the code word. It's not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah.
Um, I also like the theater aspect of this. I physically had my own dad walk me out to our physical car, and he said, "Okay, everybody's getting in the car, and the person may be drunk. What do you do?" And you just say, "Nope, I'm good," and you walk away. So he physically had me walk out to the vehicle and actually walk through the action, the theater of, no, I'm good. I'm going to call my dad or I'm going to call my mom. And so when you're in that situation, what's theory? Don't get in the car with a drunk driver.
Mhm.
It's a lot harder. But when you've actually played it through almost physically, it's a lot easier to make the smart decision in the moment.
Yeah.
Number 2, no questions asked. Pick up policy. It's interesting. I had a conversation with our brand manager before this. And, she's in her 20s. And we talked a lot about this preventative list, and a lot goes into these episodes. So what's a no questions asked pickup policy? And it's interesting because she said, well, don't ask me questions. I can trust my mom. I can trust my dad. I can call them and they're going to pick me up. And they're not going to ask me any questions, and I'm going to be safe and I'm going to get home. And it's so interesting because from a parental perspective, as a mama, when I, you know, talked through that topic, I thought, wait a second, no. No questions asked. I'm picking you up, right? This is our policy. It's prom night. You're not driving with anybody else. I'm picking you up, no questions asked. And I think both sides of the coin are incredibly
Yes.
imperative to understand both mindsets. How do we bridge the gap? That's how we solve the problem. Megan, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was gonna say yours is almost coming from the perspective of, okay, we're gonna be proactive in this instance. Not to say that,
Hmm.
in the other situation, the parents weren't proactive as well. Again, they're having that conversations, but it's like, no questions asked. I'm driving, I'm picking you up. This is the plan ahead of time.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing. But again, sometimes teens and youth get into situations that they don't anticipate. That again, it's the no questions asked. They fall into peer pressure. So in that moment, again, having that reminder that okay, maybe in this moment, I'm going to come pick you up and you're not going to get in trouble, but there needs to be that conversation that does take place following, maybe it's the next morning that they need to have that conversation and say, look, we had this conversation, we talked about it, there are consequences, and holding to those consequences as well is so vitally important.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what I was saying about Mike Austin and him really instilling in his children, I'm the hero. Call your dad. Call your dad.
Mhm.
You're not in trouble. Call your dad, right? We've talked about the consequences and but I like the proactiveness too, as long as when you get to that opportunity and your child does come to you, they do pick up the phone, that you're treating them, essentially virtually like an adult and you're giving them the opportunity to be mature enough and to say, I'm grateful to you that you made the right decision and praising them for that decision, I think is
Yes.
important too. Full circle. Number three, pre-prom or event conversations. Can you talk to me about how I, as a parent, may have a conversation in advance of an event with my child?
So we often talk about it's never too late to start the conversation. Yes, we want to have them start early and often, but it's never too late to have those conversations. And especially during celebratory times of the year, prom, spring break, graduations, even leading into the summer with graduation parties, because we oftentimes see a lot of drinking that takes place at those celebrations as well.
Yeah.
Again, any opportunity that you know that there could be a chance, and maybe there's not, but there could be a chance that there is alcohol and that there is underage drinking or other substance use, that those conversations are taking place often before they leave. If you need to send over a text message to remind them to check in to see how they're doing, any opportunity for you as a parent or a caring adult to continue to instill the importance of not using underage. And again, never to get in a vehicle with an impaired driver as often as possible.
I love that. Yes, thank you. Set expectations early, have the conversations often. Prevention is not about control, it's about clarity. So I want to touch on number five, this promposal agreement.
Mhm.
Now, this is a physical agreement, folks. This is an actual physical document that you can print off, if I'm understanding correctly,
You can
directly
go to
from
our
your
website or you can
website.
print off online.
Okay,
Yep, both.
I love this concept, and here's why. This is a major opportunity for you as a parent. I mean, what a gift to show to your child a physical. I mean, I've seen it. It's a one-page document and it talks about the consequences and it's a pledge. I'll let you touch on that in a
Sure.
moment. And it is a physical opportunity for you to obtain a wet signature from your child that says, I pledge to do X. And it's a great introduction into contractual agreements. You're going to uphold your end of the bargain and I'm going to uphold mine, or there's going to be consequences, right? They're going to be 18 soon. If they're not already, they're going to
Yep.
get their first credit card. They're going to get, going into
So many
college.
responsibilities
Yeah,
coming
so
their
this
way.
is a great opportunity for you to take this contractual almost obligation very seriously up for something like impaired drinking. I'm sorry, impaired driving with underage drinking.
Yes.
So tell me more about the agreement and the
So through
pledge.
promposal's presentation at the very end, we ask all of the students to, again, will you accept our promposal? Which again is making those choices. And really in that moment, it's pledging for themselves. It's pledging for themselves that they're going to make those good choices along with their peers.
Okay.
On top of that, we do have MADD's Prom Promise, which again is
Okay.
that parent and youth agreement that they're able to sit down,
I see.
read through it, and then sign off on it and say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what we're going to do. And
Yeah.
it's so vitally important because, again, it's signing an agreement with your parent and making that pledge with them. But then also at the same time, again, it's another open door opportunity for parents to talk to their youth.
Yeah, I love it. I want to summarize these points that we went through today. So here's a toolkit. The problem is teens feel invincible. We understand they're going to be exposed to drinking as even athletes. Parents are assuming it's not my child, not my kid. Conversations are happening too late. Rides seem safe enough. The solution here, safe ride agreements, no questions asked pickup policy, pre-prom, homecoming, spring break, graduation, and event conversations, having those conversations early and often, and then setting expectations, because prevention is not about control, it's about clarity. Make it clear. That's how we prevent and stop the hemorrhaging. All we have to do is make it clear. We're going to talk about clear consequences. We're going to talk early. We're going to talk often, and we're going to model moderation. That's where it starts in terms of prevention with our teens. So if you could speak directly to a parent that's listening right now, what would you say?
I feel like I'm on repeat, but it's so important to be on repeat because, we talk about saying it often, but just having those conversations with the youth in your lives and talking to your children, and again, early and often, about the dangers of underage drinking. Because again, for me and for anybody who works for MADD, anyone who's involved with MADD and volunteers on a regular basis, we see the devastation that comes from, the choice of getting behind the wheel after drinking, the choices that are made with underage substance use on a daily basis. We see that devastation. And that's why so often we share our stories, because that is a way for us to have a reminder out there that bad things happen. And again, this is based on one choice and one decision that didn't have to happen. So any opportunity that parents have to be able to talk to their children, take that opportunity. Many times, it might just be, again, before those holidays, before those important occasions, but sometimes it's on the way driving to ice hockey practice, having a few moments in the car to just be able to have a conversation and be, remind them, I love you. I care about you dearly. I want to remind you, make those good choices. And if you ever need me, I'm here.
Yeah, that's wonderful. If you could speak directly to a teen that's listening right now, what would you say?
For me, I do have a teen, so I have conversations with him often. So it's always having the conversation to say, my expectation of you and anyone and your friends, because we're looking, all of his friends I consider family as well, that, we're looking out for you and that we want to make sure that you all are making good choices. And for that, my children specifically, if they make a bad choice, we're going to talk about it. There's going to be consequences. They know about those consequences ahead of time. But again, this is all not to ruin anybody's fun. It's not to, damage your reputation and make you uncool amongst your group. It's to keep you safe and to ultimately, make sure that, you're on the right trajectory. And again, remembering, the science of the brain, keeping your brain safe and knowing that you have a big future ahead of you. Don't let one bad choice ruin your future forever.
That's wonderful. Meghan, thank you so much for the work that you are doing and for joining us today. This season and spring break and prom, and I know in the fall we have homecoming, graduation in the summer. It's almost like it never really stops. It's an ongoing season.
Yeah.
And I feel like you've given us a toolkit today that's very snackable, that is going to help, right? Prevention is not about control, it's about clarity. And we want to make sure that we celebrate without regrets, that we celebrate safely. So
That's right.
yes, and if a mistake does happen, if you or your teen or young adult finds himself in a situation with a DUI, I believe in Smart Start's Ignition Interlock program. We are a company that is built with a device that works, a tech stack that is second to none, and we treat everyone in the process through our program in such a way that there is no stigma, there is no judgment. We also have a phenomenal total package where you can pair your roadside assistance with your SR22 and you can save thousands of dollars. My name is Morgan Ryan, and I'm so grateful for you for joining our episode today. You can get your first 2 payments free with coupon code Stigma Free. That's coupon code Stigma Free. Or you can give us a call at 844-766-0156. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks. So good.